This video is going over the book Building Java Programs version 4, and we're looking at chapter 8, which is about classes, and we're doing the self-check number 11, get normal reverse order name, and we're doing this on the Practice It website, which is a free website that accompanies the book. So this is actually a continuation of problem 8.7, and I just went over that in a separate video. You should go see that if you haven't already. But once, let's just quickly review. So we've got a new class here, and it's got first name, middle initial as a character, and a last name field, okay? So what we want to do now is add two new methods to this class. And I believe that we don't, it's just a partial class. So we're not going to include the full public class, everything. We're just going to include, but you know what? I'm just going to at least show you, okay? I'm going to copy this so that you can see where it goes, okay? And then we're going to have to delete the rest. But okay, so inside this class, what we're going to do is we are going to, let's go ahead and delete those because that was just really for the last problem. Let's create two new methods in here. Okay, we're going to grab getNormalOrder. Oh, great. Well, it's not going to let me do it, so let's type it in manually. So public and returns a string getNormalOrder, and public string getReverseOrder. So we've got these two methods here. So the first one, getNormalOrder, returns the person's name in normal order, followed, the first name followed by the middle initial and the last name. So we want John Q public, okay? So this is just simple string concatenation. We know that we have to return a string, and let's just build it up manually. So we're going to start with the first name, plus then the middle initial. Now, normally this would be a problem because I'm adding a character to a string, but this string concatenation here will, if one of these operators is a string, it'll try to convert the other one to a string. So that should be fine. Then we also need the period after it. So we're going to put the period, and then we're going to put the last name. Okay, and then we want the reverse order here. So we're going to do the reverse order. So we're going to do the last name, and then we're going to have this comma here. Okay, so it's the last name, comma, and space. And also we want a space up here. And comma, space, and then the first name, and then a space, and then the middle initial. And then, oh, we also need that space, that period at the end. Okay, but it's important that we actually, this is a good point, or I shouldn't have deleted that other code. It's not required, but I always tell my students, you really need to put this dot here for each of these. The rule is that you only need to do this dot if you also have a local variable of the same name. So I could have a local variable here, or a parameter passed in, and it could be string first name, okay? So the way that you tell the difference between, am I referring to this one here, or am I referring to this one, is whether there is a this dot here. Usually it's because there's a parameter here that's string first name, and then it's the only way to distinguish between the parameter and the member is by using the this dot. But I always tell my students, always use this dot whenever you're referring to any member variable, because I want you to realize that this is not just some local variable. This is actually a class variable. And let's review, what's the difference between a class variable and a local variable? Let me go back and put that part of that code in. Let me just switch over for a second. I'll grab it and come back. Okay, so I pasted in that main from 8.7 that's got this string first name. Let me go ahead just to give it a default. So this is a local variable, and what's the difference between a class variable and a local variable? So you notice how this says static here? Okay, this is actually an important point. Okay, what a static method is a method which exists outside of creating an object. So we haven't actually gotten to object creation yet here, but somewhere along the line you're actually going to need to have a method that says name n equals new name, and then we haven't talked about constructors yet, so I can't really do that. But then on this name method n, you can call n that's a bad name. String s equals n dot get normal order. Okay, that's valid. So we actually have to create an object. Then you can call, and when you create that object, that's where this comes into play. And then you can call a method which uses the this dot. If I attempt inside here to say, let's try to access this dot first name. Okay, do you think that's going to work? So what is this? This is an object. It's an object that's been created, but I haven't created any objects yet. So this is not gonna work. Let me go ahead and run this. Oh, right. Well, first problem is that it's got the whole class in here. So I can't unfortunately demonstrate this, but it's not going to work. Okay, it would complain that this is referring to an object and this is a static function. Okay, static functions don't have a this dot. Okay, they exist outside of creating any new objects, whereas the this dot is only created. It only exists after you call new name. Okay, so now in order to get this thing to work, I'm going to have to get rid of all of that. Get rid of all of this because the problem just wants the code here. But let's try this and see whether we got this to work. Okay, we just got a simple problem here. Instead of a comma, that's a plus. All right, we're almost there. Okay, so our output is John Q. Okay, I gotta have a space. First name plus space plus this. Okay. Now, let's go back and review. What was this problem about? This problem is about accessing class variables. And unfortunately, the way this problem is written, you can't actually see the class that's around it. But it's using class variables, which it's not strictly required, but I always have my students use the this dot here. And it's about string concatenation, which you've seen before. But it's about using string concatenation from member variables, okay? So unfortunately, some students are confused by this, so hopefully you have found this helpful. If you did find it helpful, please like and subscribe. I have a complete curriculum on the Building Java Programs book and a lot of these practice hits.